All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thanks for attending our webinar today about SmallWaterSupply.org. A few housekeeping things first. There are 60 people signed up. I don't know if we're going to have that many, but because of that, we're asking everyone to ask questions using the GoToWebinar pane where the questions are. And Cassia Smith, who is a staff member on our project at SmallWaterSupply.org, will answer the questions she can, and the ones that we need to will answer at the end, and I'll just go through them then. And so I appreciate everyone's patience with that. Today we're going to go through just some examples of how to use our site. Assuming, since I'm sure most of you here I assume most of you here are aware of our site, since you probably heard of this through our newsletter. We'll go through most of the pieces. And the real issues I want to show, talk about here, are for those who maybe haven't used our site extensively or have had problems with it. Our front page is kind of the key to everything. If you have any kind of questions or problems, you can email us or call us, and someone will respond and get back with you. We get a lot of requests for information through here where someone can't find information on our site. Sometimes it's because it's not there and we need to go look for it. Other times it's just because the site, trying to go through the filtering process for the documents and those things sometimes can be a little daunting. There's a register login button up here. Nothing on our site requires you to be logged in and have a registration except our forum. And we have a user forum. We've kind of, on our forum, to be honest, because it's just not very popular, but and you can see the forum without being logged in. You just can't answer or ask questions. And so if you are interested in participating in our forum, then you need to register. And the idea behind having a registration is simply to make it mostly for operators and TA providers, not vendors and other folks who are trying to sell or advertise on our site. So again, our email address is probably the biggest thing you can use. Our front page, we list free webinars. We highlight all the things we're updating on the site, and we feature a video each week. And down at the bottom, there's a 3.5 minute video on how to find documents and how to use our calendar, and it walks you through the steps we're going to walk through today. So if someone you know or you show somebody else the site, you can have them refer to that short video to get an idea of how this all works. We're a free service. We're grant funded. The funding came through the Midwest Technology Assistance Center at the University of Illinois, which received its funding from US EPA. And so because of that, we're able to do all this for operators for free. And the idea behind the site is to support small system operators, both water and wastewater, that don't have a lot of resources or time. And so our idea here was to pull all this information from all over the internet in one place and make it easy to use. The best example of that probably is our calendar. If you scroll over calendar, you can go to the event search, or you can submit an event if you're a TA provider that has a class for CEUs. You can click on calendar and get an idea of the highlights, how you use filter criteria, and when you search for an event, it takes you to this page. It shows you basically a blank calendar. We've set this up and made it filterable. So we go out on the internet and find information, in theory, from every technical assistance provider and agency that has primacy, and anybody else that's doing training or has events related to water and wastewater, and we've put them on a SQL database and made it searchable. So most of the time, as an operator, you're going to look for your state first. You're going to look for things that are available in your state. And so, for instance, if I use Illinois as an example, it shows all the different training and types of events going on in Illinois. Illinois EPA. These are certification exams. And so there's a lot of information there. We can actually go in and search by type. And if we click on certification exam, it narrows it down to just certification exams. If we say conferences or symposium, you can see there's the Southern Illinois Water Operators Association has their spring conference on the 23rd. You can also click on View List, and it'll give you a list of all the conferences going on in Illinois that we have, or national conferences that would include Illinois that are going on. And so it's pretty robust. And again, the main reason operators are going to use our site is because of the training that's available for CEUs. And one thing I didn't mention, the point of our site is to be non-biased. So any organization that trains that has CEUs for their training, whether it's free or whether it's $1,000, it's listed. If it's not for CEUs, then the only things we list are free events. So that, again, we're trying to help the small operator with those things. And so as you go through these, you can search further by sponsor. And so it lists all the sponsors we have listed here. And the interesting thing, Blackhawk College, I know Joliet Junior College is in here. A lot of the operators in Illinois anyway, which is where we're at, so we have probably more information here, weren't even aware that these other organizations did training. And so one of the advantages for the operator is that in their state they may only know of 2 or 3 trainers, and this may open that up to 7 or 8 or more. And so you can sort it by this and narrow it down, and anytime you click on any one of these events, it gives you all the details. And again, we put this all in a SQL database, and the idea being that an operator can come in and look through all this training from all these different websites in just a few minutes and determine if it's something they're interested in. And we're supporting all the trainers and all the TA providers and state agencies and federal agencies by providing this information and linking back to their site. So this would take you back to Joliet Junior College's page. And so we can get rid of this, so we're just searching for training, type in a keyword like wastewater, and it's going to narrow it down to anything that's related to wastewater. And again, you can use this view list, which uses these 3 filters and shows you everything in their database, not just the things from May 2012. So there's a lot of information available. One of the things that I tell everyone anytime I'm giving a presentation is every day we find new organizations, whether it's a small operators association in some state or whether it's some trainer we just weren't aware of. And so if you don't find information on here that should be, let us know, and you can email us, and we'll add them to the list and make sure that we're gathering that information. And that's one of the ways. I know there's some state folks on the line. When you look through your state information, if there's trainers we're missing, it would be very helpful if you let us know. So that's really how the calendar works. One of the things you can reset this, clear it. We also provide tribal information for the nearly 600 tribal water and wastewater systems around the country. There's 2 ways to search for tribal events, either by category. We have a category called tribal, or we also have a state listed as the National Tribal Operator Program. And so when you click on that as a state, it gives you all the events going on from many of the usual players, the Intertribal Council of Arizona, US EPA. There's some webinars and different things. And if it's for tribal operators only, it says that. It gives you contacts again and does all the same features and how many development hours those are worth and that sort of thing. And so this is also a service for those tribal systems that maybe aren't subject to the state regulations but are part of the national program. The same format basically is set up for our documents. One thing I guess I didn't mention about the calendar is you can submit an event to us. And so this was set up for some of these small operator associations that maybe don't have a website. I know we have several in Illinois. They do not have a website, but they have 1 or 2 events a year so that the operators in their area can stay close to home. And so we provided this, and here's an example of a workshop and the kinds of things they need to fill out so that they can provide that information and we can add it to our site. We've entered over 30,000 events since October of 2009, and it's pretty impressive that we're able to keep up with all that information. And on the document side, it's the same deal. For documents, the only documents we serve are those that are free and publicly available online. And so, for instance, anything that has a fee isn't listed here. Again, the idea is we're trying to serve the small water and wastewater operator who has very little resources, or their community has a few resources for them. And so if you know where to look and you're willing to look deep enough, you can find a lot of information on the web that's free and that also is valuable for those guys, so that they're not spending their limited resources on some of these documents that are available. And so the setup is really the same way, except that state here really has a different purpose. One of the things that we've done is a document, let's say that only EPA has an arsenic document that describes arsenic compliance, but it's really a general document that would describe arsenic compliance in any state, or a fact sheet on CCR that explains the federal rule for that, but doesn't, it's not really geared towards Illinois. In those cases, we don't list that document as an Illinois document. It's listed under the sponsor being Illinois EPA, but it's not given a state, so that that resource is available to operators in any state. And the advantage there is, which we'll see in some of these examples, it leverages all the information from all of the states and all the different agencies and TA providers from around the country. So in one state, you may have a really robust program. I know several states that have very active capacity development programs, and there's other states that have very inactive, basically, capacity development programs. And the ones that are active put out new documents and new information, or CDs, and that makes those available for those operators in states where maybe that information isn't available. Because the bottom line is an operator in Illinois isn't going to search under Kansas or West Virginia or some other state's primacy agency to find information. They just don't have the time, and that's what we're here for. So most of the time, if you're searching for information, it's going to be based on a category. So what we've done is we've tried to put all the 11,000 plus documents we've come across into one of about 30 categories, and you can see those here: backflow, biosolids, water and wastewater, certification, some of those categories. So you can search by category if it turns out to be in one of these categories, and as you look through these, we've tried to make these broad brush determinations on where everything would fit, and that works pretty well. A good example I've used before, one of the things we try to preach to small systems is they need to run their systems like a business. That includes doing vulnerability assessments and having emergency response plans and SOPs. And so when you talk to a small system and say, do you have an emergency response plan, that seems overwhelming to them. But if we wanted to find, we can show them quickly, there are several available online they can download, fill in the blank type of emergency response plan. So I clicked on water security emergency response for the category, and I tell it to retrieve those documents. There's 778 documents here related to that broad category. For every document, there's a summary that describes the document. There's a link to the source page. A lot of websites have multiple documents on one page, or have a publications page. I know, like the state of Washington, they have a publications page where you can find everything that they have there, which is pretty handy. Who the host is, and then a link back to the document itself. We don't host any documents. The only caveat there is some US EPA documents that are out of print that are in their library. There's no way to link to those. And so we do download those PDFs and put them on our server and link to them that way, but we still give credit to the US EPA on the page. Just the link goes to a SmallWaterSupply.org server. But for each one, it allows you to look and see what's here without having to actually click on it, download it. And the advantage there are, the example I like to use is in Colorado, a lot of the operators on the western slope are still using dial-up. Many of you are probably familiar with Operator Basics, CD developed through the Montana TAC, the Montana Water Center, and it takes almost 6 hours to download on a dial-up. And if you can get your computer not to crash in 6 hours, you're pretty lucky a lot of times. So it makes it tough to download some of those things. And so by creating a summary and this type of information, you can just scroll through and search. Okay, so going back to our example, there's 778 documents. You're not going to look through all of those. So we have this keyword filter. If we type in emergency response plan, what this does is it looks for that exact string of text, either in the title, the summary, or we also have on the back end of our database a set of keywords that are just in the SQL database. And so now if we click on this, and we've narrowed it down to 75, which is still quite a few to look through, but we can narrow it down even further. Every document that's in here is also listed by type. If it's a CD, a program, or a spreadsheet, a fact sheet or case study, a manual, handbook, a report, a slide presentation, or if it's a web page. A lot of different organizations use their web pages in different ways. Some list all their information as HTML text. Some have all PDFs. Some use Word files. All those different things. And so this tries to accommodate all those. But if you're trying to find an emergency response plan, if you had a template to use, it would be pretty helpful. And so whenever we narrow it down by that, so now we've said water security emergency response, forms and templates that have emergency response plan, the title, the summary, now we're down to 25. It's much more manageable. And so you can look through these and see some of them are 2-page documents, some are 30-page documents. Nebraska Health and Human Services has one. I'm going to go to the next page. Several state rural water associations have them, and that sort of thing. One thing I forgot to mention, and this is for Cassia, if someone asks a question, I'm not looking at the question. And if it's something that needs to be answered now, and just go ahead and interrupt, okay?
Okay. We do have a question whether or not you have a limit on documents that you print out.
A limit on documents that we print out?
Yeah, it says you will print documents for systems. Do you have a limit?
We expect people to be reasonable. In a lot of, there's cases where that is one thing we will offer. If someone calls us and they're on a dial-up and they can't, for instance, going back to the example of the Montana CD Operator Basics, they can email us. We'll get a copy of that and mail it to them, and then that's free. It's part of what we use our grant funding for. And the same way for documents. If it's in color and it's a 300-page, EPA document, we can print it and mail it to them. As far as number of documents, and that's a service for small systems, not for engineers or state folks or vendors or anybody else. If there was a request that, for a lot of information, then we would just talk to them and work it out and find out what they really need first. There's no sense wasting trees when maybe 1 or 2 or 3 documents might solve the problem. So that's basically my answer to that. We aren't going to print out 200 documents for somebody. That's excessive and kind of not in the spirit of what we're trying to do. So going back to our emergency response plan templates, RCAP has several for water and wastewater. They do theirs. Here's the instructions. Here's the template. And the same for Massachusetts Rural Water. Several other states do. National Rural Water has a 48-page template. So you can click on this and just download it. And I'm using Google Chrome today. So, but as this downloads, the idea being there's information out here like this emergency response plan. And again, RCAP has some too, and so do some state folks. But it tells you what to do, what you need to do, step 1, what things you need to have, what information you need to have in advance. It walks you through the entire process. I know for this particular document, the back half of it, if I get down there, is all templates on what you need to fill out, and the first half tells you what to do. And so you still may need some support from a local TA provider, either a water RCAP person or AWA section person or whoever, but it's a way to get started and see what kind of information is needed, and it makes it a lot more manageable. And so, it's not as tough of a thing to do as you might expect, and that's kind of the message we try to give to operators, that a lot of this stuff is very doable, and it's all, there's a lot of free information out there. Other things you can do, I know not a real popular topic, but a really necessary one is consolidation. A lot of small systems that now have problems either with the arsenic rule or some other situation, or can't get funding, their system's old, and they're looking at major replacement costs. You can look on here and find some examples. There's actually some really good examples of different types of efforts that have been done in the past. Two really good examples from the Mississippi State TAC, actually, is this 24-page document on the pros, cons, options, and perceptions. They went out and interviewed systems that had consolidated, and it's got what they actually said as far as what worked, what didn't work, what you need to do to go about it, all those sorts of things. And again, whenever consolidation comes up, many small town folks, they're really against that. But it doesn't necessarily mean complete consolidation of two systems. It can mean sharing equipment and an operator, or there's a lot of ways to get economies of scale without actually giving up autonomy, and that's what we try to help them understand. I was at Missouri Rural Water this last week at their meeting, and a guy asked me, he's trying to write some bylaws for their water district. And so we typed in bylaw, and it came up with 21. Many of these, are an association where we've actually linked to their documents, like the Alabama Rural Environment or Water Environment Association. But there's actually a couple templates in here. District bylaws from the Special District Association of Colorado has a template. There's a couple other on the next page. So there's a wealth of information, and using the keyword filter really is a good way to go about that if you're looking for something specialized. And there's certainly information when you search for it that you aren't going to find. We've been adding information as much as we can, but there's things we've missed, there's certain topics we've missed, and that's where all of you can help us out as well. If you're looking for something, you can't find it, email us. And we had an operator from Washington State email us about source water protection. He has a homeowners association with 28 homes. They have a well that they lease the ground in a pasture, and the owner of the ground decided to put livestock in the pasture and surrounding the well, basically. And he asked for some information to try to convince them not to do that. And we had a few resources on our page, but nothing that was really that convincing. And so we went out and searched on the web, and from some unusual sources found some really good information, including a couple videos that convinced the landowner not to put their cattle, or I think it was horses actually, on that property. And so that's hopefully the type of effort we can go to for small system guys, and that's why we're here. It's kind of like our primary business practice is to support. And so I guess the message is use us as much as you can. So somebody, as another example, if somebody asks an operator in their community about their CCR, you can try to find CCR resources. You can type CCR, and you're probably going to get a lot. 135, but we can go in here and look under category. One of the categories is consumer information. So what we've tried to do here, consumer information is meant to be information that operators can use with their consumers. And so a lot of them are fact sheets or those sorts of things. And if we go in and say fact sheets, we can narrow this down, and from different places. And again, it leverages information from all over the country, and which is the big advantage. If your state doesn't have some of this information, then the state likely does. Cassie mentioned printing out documents. I had an operator contact me about studying for a certification exam, and I always mention the California state products because that's what a lot of states use for developing the questions for their exams and that sort of thing, but I also said there's some state resources that are available. And we looked through about 20 documents together. Well, he was on his computer and I was on mine, and we settled on 2 from West Virginia, Department of Health and Human Services. And they're really helpful documents. They have a lot of math questions in them. They just provide a lot of good information. And so I actually printed those out and mailed them to him so he could study for his exam. So that's really, again, the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of our website are the documents in the calendar. That's what most folks use our site for, and that's where we spend most of our time trying to keep things updated. A few of the things I'm just going to mention. We have a blog, and basically, if you're not familiar with blogs, blogs are basically a news article, and some are on tribal issues, different topics. We try to have articles on Mondays that are about how to run your small system like a business, and we started that quote category because you know, the EPA will tell you 90% of all the compliance problems are small systems, and 90% of their problems are because they don't manage their system well as a business. They don't have money in the bank. They don't have enough training, and they don't manage their resources that well where they can actually go out and take care of problems when they have them. So along with our blog, we have a newsletter, and I'm just going to show one example of that. It's an older newsletter, but it gets the point of what we're trying to do. Going back to the March 1st, 2011 newsletter, we put an article up about how to map your small water supply. This particular topic is another business practice. Most small systems can't afford to have an engineering firm come out and GIS their whole system, but Google Earth came out with some free software that you can use a handheld GPS and go out and at least map all the basics. And just last week at Missouri Water, somebody asked me, why would you want to do that? And many older systems have dead-end lines where there used to be a house. The town went along this one road so far, and now it's a smaller town these days, and there's an old water line that no one remembers was there. They call someone to help them find their leak. They know they have 40% water loss, and it takes them, you know, quite a bit of time to find that. Turns out there's this old line that's been there for 50 years, and it's rusted through, and that no one remembered it was there. Well, if they had a map of where their lines were, even just basic information, you know, it might save the next person some of that headache. And that's the other message we try to leave with small system operators. You're not going to be there forever. You know, small towns have it pretty tough. They work on limited budgets. If you really are trying to support your town and you want your community to stay viable, then you should be doing whatever you can to help the next person that's going to come along and work with your system. And so when you click on this, it goes back to, again, our blog, where the day before, Jennifer Wilson had written a post on how to map your water supply using GPS and Google Earth. This free software called Spreadsheet Mapper 2.0, you can download it. You can use your handheld GPS to bring it in, and basically you create a little GIS system for your system. And maybe even that's not for the operator, it's for the city clerk or the mayor, but it's certainly it's a basically free way if you want to spend the time to develop that. And Google's created these tutorials, and so you can get to the information there. So that's the way our newsletter works and our blog. Going back here, a couple of things I want to mention. Everyone talks about careers these days and the shortage of operators. We did a survey of all the operators in Illinois in 2006, and for all the systems that responded, which was about 280, under 250 connections, the average, or 2/3 of the operators were over 55, and only 8% were under 40, and that was in 2006. So, and that's pretty common across the country. It's a big issue. That's why AWWA and WEF have started Work for Water and some of those things. Well, we've tried to put some resources together in one place where you can get different things, some job opportunity issues, some of this information. But one of the big things that we spent this last year building was a list of all the operator training programs. Workforwater.org is hosted by WEF and AWWA, it's a great site. It has a lot of resources and about all the different careers in the water and wastewater industry. But when you look at for training programs, they list the 2-year and 4-year schools around the country. There's nothing that lists just the operator schools. And there are some really good ones. And Illinois is fortunate enough to have one of the excellent operator schools in the country. So what we did is we went around and found all the different certificate programs and operator schools that prepare a young person for taking the exam in their state. And we put them together on this page. And again, scroll over careers, go to operator training programs. And so it lists each program separately. As we go through this, I get to Illinois, the Environmental Resources Training Center at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. When you click on that, it gives you all the details, who the person is, how much it costs, what states it's accredited in. And basically by accreditation, we mean when you're done taking this class or these set of classes, you're ready to take the exam in your state. And for this particular program, they've got their own 30,000-gallon-a-day water and wastewater plant in this large building. They have solar panels. They have confined space training, everything an operator really needs to prepare for the exam. And when they're done, they do 5 weeks at a water plant, 5 weeks at a wastewater plant that works with them in the St. Louis area. And then they're ready to take the Class C, Illinois and Missouri water exam, and the Class 4 wastewater. And I actually hired one of the young men who graduated from this program as an intern last summer. He didn't have a job, but he did have a license. And so he worked with some small communities in Illinois. He helped one with cups to develop their cups for a program, the checkup program for small systems, if you're not familiar with it, for their system. And he worked with another system to help develop an emergency response plan. And because he really knew operations well, he was able to help, especially the system that needed the emergency response plan developed. He gave them a lot of extra information as far as his expertise working with water and wastewater in the plant itself, and helped the mayor quite a bit in that respect. So
Steve,
yes.
We have a question here, someone wanting to know if we list scholarship opportunities as well.
We do not offer scholarship opportunities as well. I wish we could. That's something to talk to some of the funders about, or develop a grant program where that we could actually get into that field. It would. We had the money to hire one intern, so that's what we did. But if you go to workforwater.org, I know one of the things they have listed there, and it's not necessarily beneficial for some folks, but there are a lot of programs for veterans where they can get a lot of their costs for taking these sort of classes. And I know the other thing that's available a lot of times even at a county level are a job program. You know, sometimes you can get those costs if it's training that's going to lead to a career. And I'm not certainly not the expert on that, but the person who probably knows the most about that I know is Allison Watanabe at USEPA. And if anyone wants her email address to ask some of those questions, you can email me at info@SmallWaterSupply.org, and I'll make sure and get those emails to her and see if she could maybe provide some more information. She led a workforce work group this last year that looked at some of the intern programs around the country that are available, and some of those have scholarship opportunities and things like that based on the state. And she's certainly the person that I would refer that kind of question to. So one of the interesting things here, we also found a couple schools that aren't colleges. This is the Upper Cape Cod Regional Technical School, and it's a high school. And whenever you come out of this, you're ready to take, ready to do, yeah, it prepares you to become an operator. It's pretty cool. There's also one in Florida. The one thing I wanted to mention about this, the real take-home message, especially anyone who is interested in trying to help younger folks get involved in the water and wastewater field, is the best thing you can do is give this to your the counselor at your high school. Give this website, this particular careers page, and or give them the links to the colleges or community colleges in your state that actually have these programs, because many of these are a semester or a year long, And when maybe it's someone who's not going to go to a 4-year or even a 2-year college, but they would appreciate a job like this where they're hands-on, something different every day. And one of the things I guess I didn't mention is this video we put together. I interviewed a number of operators from small systems, and just, why did you want to be an operator, or what do you like about being an operator? And you get a lot of varied answers. We only included the good ones, but there's a lot of good reasons. A lot of people who work hands-on or feel they're really making a difference in their communities, and it's for the right type of person, it's certainly a worthwhile field. So again, so that's the careers page. We have a public reporting page. Originally, we were trying to offer to help folks with their CCRs, and what we've ended up doing, we haven't got any takers, and we put a lot in our newsletter about it, but we did find some smaller communities that put their CCRs online. So we provide those examples. And the other thing that we did with this page then is try to provide some best practices. So these are all information that are available from that are in our database from different organizations who have provided ways to communicate with your customers. And again, one of the other problems that we feel is going on with small systems is that the customers and the folks that live in rural areas don't understand the value of their water. And we've all heard the term value of water many, many times. There's a lot of programs out there for that. But in a small community, it's always been taken for granted. A lot of folks feel it should be free. And I know there was a mayor in Illinois who was going to have to raise the water rates because they didn't meet the arsenic standard. And he came up to me and said, I'm going to be a one-term mayor because I'm the first guy in 20 years to raise water rates. And things like that are the problem, because the public doesn't understand why their water is valuable and those sorts of things. And so we try to push, why you need to communicate with your customers. It's worth the time, it's worth the effort, and the more your customers know, the better, easier it's going to be for you to do your job. Even especially when you go to your mayor or your town board or your water board and ask for money. And again, I just talked to a circuit rider from Missouri Rural Water last week who used to be on a board and then was an operator, and he said it was so enlightening for him. He was on the town board for 6 years, and then he ended up becoming the water operator. And the first time he had to go back to that board and ask for money for something, all of a sudden the light came on. He'd always been the guy that said, no, we can't afford it. And now he realized the reason that guy was doing this because it was really necessary. And so talking to your customers is an important thing. I guess the last thing I'll talk about is our tribal resources page. I mentioned earlier there's about 580 tribal water and wastewater systems around the country. One of the things that we built through this, again, this is a grant through US EPA, we agreed to build a contact manager. And that's really what I'm going to talk about kind of quickly here. There aren't tribes in every state that have, well, there aren't tribes in every state, and there certainly aren't tribes with water and wastewater systems in every state, including Illinois, but there are a lot around the country. And so the idea behind this is a lot of the tribal providers aren't consistent in the way they've provided support for tribal systems. In some areas, there's more support than they need. In other areas, maybe there's overlap of certain services and not enough of others. And one of the ways, there was a national work group that was put together, and one of the ways they wanted to go about fixing that, so to speak, is to develop a contact manager, not for the tribes, but for all the TA providers and agencies that serve tribes, so that they would know who the players are in their areas and they could work better together. So what we built is a relational database based on tribe, but you can go in and you can select any of these organizations, whether it's an EPA region. So if we go to Region 5, which is where I'm from, it shows you then a list of all the other players from all these different organizations and what office they're from. So the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Midwest office, Indian Health Service areas here, Midwest Technology Assistance Center in Illinois. And so it gives you an idea of who all the other players are in the same area. And so if we click on one of these, it gives you the contact. And so that way, as a TA provider, you can reach out to the other TA providers or agencies to try to coordinate efforts a little better. And so that's what this was built for. And if you know, let me clear this real quick. But it also does serve. So, for instance, if we look at tribal organizations, it shows you the tribal. These are the tribal organizations that we know of. Some of these were given to us by Indian Health Service and US EPA. Others we found ourselves on the web. But the idea here is if anyone knows of other tribal organizations that are serving, supporting water and wastewater operators at given tribes, then let us know. And so you can see some of these organizations serve a lot of area. The other advantage of this site, it wasn't meant to be this way, but if you are a tribal operator, you can go through this list and you can find your tribe, and it now gives you a list of who all the people are that are supposed to be working with you. And so if you know you need to get a hold of HUD for something related to housing, or someone said that the Rural Water Association in your state, has can do leak detection, for instance. Now you can find that information and know who the contact is and get a hold of them. And so it's pretty useful in that respect. And I guess with that, I'm not sure how many questions we have, or if there's anything else that anybody would like to go through.
We had a question at the beginning where someone wanted to know if we archived the videos. I believe the videos from the newsletter.
Yes, thank you. And I will show you that. We just started putting the video in the newsletter this year on January 1st, and so we also feature that video here at the bottom of our homepage. And so each week we share a video, and then we created a little video archive page that's actually listed under documents that shows each one and that we've used so far. We also have a YouTube page where we've put some other videos. We quickly discovered, based on the size of our grant and the resources we have, originally we started going through YouTube, and we do have some of the videos that we know about are in our database, but it's actually, it's getting between YouTube and Vimeo. It's almost a full nother project to try to highlight all the video resources that are available. So we're doing it slowly, but there's a lot of information out there that we don't have listed in our database yet. And the problem is, if you have a 50-minute video, you have to watch the 50-minute video to be able to write an intelligent summary of what's on the video. And so it's just a really time-consuming thing. There are some highlights, though, of those that I want to show you. One is CA wastewater, and actually in most of my talks talking about this particular website. CA wastewater for California operator, as a California operator, wastewater operator, he created all these videos on wastewater math. They're all 10 minutes long. There's usually 4 or 5 videos for each class or grade of operator in California. And you can see a few of these have had 4,000 or 5,000 hits. There's been 83,000 views in less than 3 years, I believe. So I guess, yeah, it's been about 3 years. And so we contacted this young man. His name's Christian Williams, and said, hey, we want to highlight you on our webpage, and we want to put something in our newsletter. At the time, he was 22 years old. And the interesting thing, his story here basically is he started working at a wastewater plant when he was 16. He went ahead and got his license. I think he works for Veolia now. And he sees he's a member of the Water Environment Association in California. And you see all the time how operators are failing their certification exams. Most of the time it's because of the math. And so he decided to do something about it. He's tech savvy. He put all this together on his own. Like I said, each of these videos are 8 to 10 minutes long, and there's about 20 of them. And so it's a huge amount of effort. He did it all on his own, and it's an example that we like to use of what one person can do to make a difference in our field. And so it's a pretty heartwarming case, and it's really useful stuff. So, and I'd say on the video side, if you're looking for a good video on a topic, email us, and we'll try to find it. And that's really, we've done that several times. The guy in Washington State, we provided a good source water protection video that actually mentioned livestock problems and how close they need to be. Well, and some of those things, and we'd be glad to try to find information that would be helpful in that respect. So.
We also had one other question asking if there is some place operators from different systems could exchange materials and equipment.
That question actually came up, and we actually had something in our newsletter, I believe, last week about that. Someone had asked us, hey, where can I, do you know of a place, kind of an eBay online, where you might be able to find some of that information? And our newest newsletter isn't up here yet. And so we had asked in our newsletter, where can you buy equipment, tools, other supplies on the internet? And so this is what we ended up with, thebluebook.com and municipalbid.com. And it's not specifically what most people are looking for, I'm sure, but I guess the answer is we don't know of a great spot. And I know currently, until we know where our future is with SmallWaterSupply.org, it's not something we could really build onto our website as of today anyway, at some point maybe. Because it certainly would be a useful tool to have, a no-nonsense place where you don't have to worry about advertising and that sort of thing. I know Illinois Section AWA contacted us, and they do have a place on their website where you can buy or sell your equipment, and it's really meant for their members, I believe. That's what it says here. It's for members only. But they may have some of that information outside of their website, outside of their membership page too. And that's the first place I'd check. I would contact your state TA providers, your Water Association and your AWA and your Water Environment and your RCAP folks and any other operator associations you might have. If there's a Water and Wastewater Operators Association in your state, and ask them if they might have something like that or might be willing to start it. That's the best answer I have there. Okay, well, that's all I have. And if anyone's got any further questions, I guess the best thing to do is just to email us or call us. Again, we do have a toll-free number. It's probably best, honestly, if you email us. We do use students for some of our work, and not all of us are students. Cassie and I are not, but and so we're not always fully manned every day of the week. And so, but we always return all the email we get, and we try to work with operators directly to help them find resources. We just had an operator this last week ask us about the best type of aeration. He should, what types of aeration should he use for his lagoon, 300,000-gallon lagoon. And so, I'm not the expert, or we're not the experts on all of those engineering issues. And so what we did is we found someone local who could help him. And so that's kind of the way we see our role, is to provide support. And we don't have the answers, but we know how to get them. And so that's with that, I guess. Thank you for attending. And if you have anything further, you can also call me directly. My phone number is 217-333-0956, and feel free to call anytime. And anyone who's going to be at ACE, there's several small system tracks that we'll be at. We don't have a booth this year, but we will be presenting some information, including an update to our 2006 operator survey for Illinois. And yeah, with that, thanks again.